Now, when I first got Beyond Sunset, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. Now, I don't usually play games that are early access. It's just something I haven't ever thought about, being a console gamer most of my life. And because of that, once I got a PC, I really didn't want to play any games that were early access. I wanted the whole experience to be done and ready for me to inject right into my brainwave holes. But I remember seeing the sword play and the bouncing like projectiles back in enemies and the 80s synth aesthetic that Beyond Sunset had, and I knew that I had to pick this game up. And I really didn't know that this game was still in early access because I remember seeing stuff about it a few years ago, probably like 3 years ago or something. And when I saw the game on sale on Steam, I said, you know, it's probably done. I'm gonna pick it up, not knowing that this game was in fact early access, which puts me in a really tricky position. Do I wait until the game eventually fully comes out and then make my final thoughts, or and let all this footage just kind of sit down with my little orphans in my sweatshop in my basement, or do I just put something together and give you out my first initial impressions? And I decided, because I'm the content gerbil king.
Excuse me, the only thing you're king of is getting pegged.
Actually, this time you're wrong, Cortana, because my butthole doesn't stretch that far. You can't get something that big into my butthole, so how can I be the king of getting pegged if I can't even handle big dildos?
God, you're the dumbest person I've ever met in my life.
That's right, Cortana. Deflect and run away. Ha, that's just your style. Gosh, totally owned her this time. Let's go. Hit me a like and a comment for that shit down there. Yeah, dude, I won. I'm so good. Get boned, bitch. Which actually, this is the perfect segue. While talking about boning and bitches, the best thing in the world is you are playing as a female protagonist in this game, a bitch who is boning other bitches. That's actually kind of cool. I do like when you have a female protagonist in a game and they're actually like interesting and well written. That's something I appreciate. You don't really think of her as female or anything. It's not really in your head that much, but when you have a cutscene or whatever, you notice she's a girl and you're like, oh, that's cool. And she doesn't have her memories. She's been fucking held hostage by this corporation. A lot of typical sci-fi tropes are going to be ran through this entire game, but I think they're all done in a really high regard and very respectful way. And I think that the character in and of herself is a very interesting character. All she wants to know is who she is, what's her background, why does she exist there, and that's a very cliched thing to do in a video game, but I do like the way it's done here because it's almost like they've been testing on her for a very long time, kind of that Total Recall style energy. It really works for this whole thing they're going for, because when you're having callbacks to stuff like Total Recall, and this whole game is something that's yanked right out of the 90s and 80s style gameplay, you're like, yeah, dude, I'm seeing Total Recall, I'm seeing Blade Runner, I'm seeing fucking Star Wars, and everything else just mashed into this game, but it's done in its own way that makes everything feel very authentic, and you can see that in this very first opening level, the prologue, motherfucker. The prologue's doing everything it needs to do. It's got that Star Trek almost aesthetic because the Star Trek thought what the future was going to look like was the 60s in space, and this feels like a 60s office space in the fucking future. It's perfect. It really shines brightly throughout this whole goddamn thing, and then you get into like some of the weird, different, darker lit areas, and it feels like I'm in a Star Wars style game. It really fucking runs with the vibe. It has this, it almost looks like it was pulled off of the cinematography of an 80s and 70s movie, and it's absolutely immaculate, and you notice this right away in the first level. A lot of games, when trying to emulate the stylistic choices of the media of that time period, they go too far and they don't feel really authentic. This game right here feels like I'm stepping onto the set of a movie in this time period, from the weapon designs, the fascination with the fucking katanas. It feels like that perfect melding of anime meets 70s and 80s pop culture. I'm getting so far ahead of myself that I've created my own time paradox where I see myself die over and over again, and I'm starting to lose faith in my own sanity, because there is so much I can talk about when it comes to aesthetic and graphics and set design and everything that this game does. I don't think the prologue's the right area to do it. I mean, I feel like I need to give this game a bit of prologue. Not just the fact that, yes, it has a story that the man named Raven comes and helps you break out of this giant corporation facility where they've had you for years and been adding all sorts of techno mumbo jumbo to your vagina and your titties, also probably your head and your fucking armpits, and a little bit of your taint has a microchip and an SSD in there so that your taint can really process all the hardware it needs to really give you orgasm powers. And you're like, wow, I didn't know I could get an orgasm from rubbing my taint. Yeah, you just need to utilize a cactus. I do think the most important part, though, of this whole thing is not only does the prologue also just set a standard what the story's gonna be and what you're gonna need to know going forward. And this prologue just doesn't do this only with story. It's not like you jump in, go through a tutorial, it's like, hey, motherfucker, she's been brain dead for a while now, this bitch don't know what she be thinking, you need to, like, learn her memories and shit, dog. And then it just throws you into the main game and you're like, wow, that was kind of a shitty epilogue. No, this game also kind of gives you a break into what the rest of the game's gonna feel like. It's set up like every other level in this entire gaming experience, which is pretty incredible. It's an actual level that's a prologue. It's not just fucking random story beats with a tutorial in it, which I see a lot of games do for prologues. Now, I know not every game is that way, but I did really appreciate the time and effort it went into this opening section. Now, I'm sure that this was like the initial demo to the game, and then they eventually decided to make the rest of the game after the success of this demo, or whatever. I don't know the ins and outs of the development of this game. I think it's made by a indie development team, probably. I mean, anything getting made on Gzdoom is probably an indie project. I have to say, though, out of the Gzdoom games I've played, even in the opening sections of this game, this might be my favorite. Oh my god! How can you say that when Sulaco exists? Let me explain, alright? Sulaco's good. I've played the first opening areas of Sulaco. It's got a lot going for it. It's crazy that Sulaco even exists with how pretty it looks. But I think that the exploration and the rewarding moving around in this game, it feels a little bit more authentic. It doesn't feel like I get lost as much. It doesn't feel like a fucking mess to find things. Now, there is that in this game, of course. It's a key hunting game. You're going to have absolute nightmarish experiences going through the same places all the time, over and over again. But I felt like the diversity in the environments and the different biomes where you're actually running around and things look different and register to you compared to Sulaco, where everything kind of looks the same in the opening areas and it's all just metally and blue. This actually, I can jump in and I can go area to area and know the difference in my mind. And yeah, it's not as pretty as Sulaco, but I think that it's got something better going for it. It's got this aesthetic. It has this push you forward type of vibe where it almost feels linear without being linear. It's amazing. It's incredible that it was able to do this. I mean, one of the best parts about this game compared to even Hard Reset or the other Ashes game is it even takes that idea of running around and meeting goofy characters and then performing little side quests for them to another level, you know? It really feels like it took what Ashes was doing, which if you haven't played Ashes, that is another fantastic Gzdoom game, and it's free. Just go get it off of ModDB. I just think this game really amplifies itself even further, because even in this opening prologue, I'm meeting wacky characters, doing little side quests for them, uploading them into mainframes, and I don't really even know these fucking guys. It's like, why would I help you? I don't even have to help them. I can fucking kill them if I wanted to. I can murder them right there in the street. For the most part, you can pretty much murder anybody you want in this game. It feels almost like it's taking pages out of Obsidian RPG's books without really being a full RPG. It's still an FPS game at the end of the day. It's still a Boomershooter, but it has the little attentions to details where it's like, but I can be a little bit more. You can upgrade your shotgun just a little bit more. It's not changing the game completely and drastically. You're not going from having like 1-inch nipples to 3-inch long nipples, but you are just getting a little bit of expansive growth there. And though this is kind of a perfect prologue to show what the rest of the game's experience is going to feel like, I also feel that it does overstay its welcome just a teensy-weensy bit. Not too bad. I think that everything kind of boils down to what you need to do and how you need to do it by the end of this little prologue section. It does, though, kind of leave me thinking, thinking, why the fuck was I here so long? I felt like I was here a very fucking long time. When you look at the level select screen and it says prologue, you're like, it's probably not very long. I could probably skip it and not miss anything. And that's fucking wrong. This prologue feels like a game in and of itself, and that's why I feel like this was the initial demo of the game. They released this to say like, hey guys, we have this big fucking thing we're about to do, and this is your first experience of it. And the prologue's probably one of the longest levels in this entire game. I think it's only rivaled by the first level of the game, which was probably their first early access push, and you can kind of feel these things in this game. And the most polished experience in the entire game is the opening section, the opening boss fight, which is incredibly fucking fun, might I add. When you get to the end boss fight in this section, it claps some fucking cheeks, it slaps some clitoris, and really puts you down into the bottoms of your butthole. I died so many fucking times of this boss fight. I was constantly just dying, repeating, trying to figure out his moveset. It felt almost Souls boss-esque. It felt like I really needed to learn and understand how this boss worked and functioned, and it was one of the most engaging moments of gameplay. Now, I wasn't playing this on an incredibly hard difficulty. I think it was either playing it on normal, on easy, like I do with most games. Shut up, Civvy and G-Man. I'm not a fucking PC sweat like you two assholes. I mean, it's honestly impressive that I even had a kid, considering I can't tell the difference between a pussy and a toaster half the time. You know how many times I've electrocuted the shit out of my dick? Way more than any individual should have electrocuted their own penis. But there's these moments when you're actually jumping into these boss fights and you finally clicks for you. And finally you understand how you're going to defeat it. And it doesn't feel something like some of those bullshit bosses that I fought in games. I mean, even the Half-Life bosses, they had their gimmicks, but they didn't feel fun to fight. This game, you jump in and you having fun with it. You're never really aggravated that much. It's not that they're bullet spongy or bullshit. You have to understand their mechanics on why they are the way they are, and once you understand that dynamic, they really aren't that hard of a boss. It's just about outmaneuvering them and outsmarting them, because you have the tools available to defeat them at any fucking moment. It's amazing, dude. It's really, really Souls-like. I like it. I like that idea of taking the crazy movement, the crazy engagement style boss fight of a Souls game, throwing it in an FPS game without making it tormenting to the point that I just don't want to fucking play your game anymore. It was really impressive. I have to say, this first boss fight just really knocked the rest of the whole prologue out of the water, that it just elevated this whole experience. It's like, yes, why didn't you just call it? I mean, I know that in story-wise, it works better as a prologue, but fuck, dude, this is the first episode. I'm scared people are going to skip this shit. They're going to jump right into the first area, which, don't get me wrong, is fucking amazing, and we will get to that, but this first prologue boss is so fucking sick. I fell in love with this game hardcore. Now, the first area really hits a lot of the themes right in terms of aesthetic and stuff, but it's boring laboratory bullshit. We've seen it a million times, we'll see it a million more times, and yes, it really push itself above and beyond with the cityscape in the background and the gorgeous neon colors all over the place. Yes, it does. I think it really does push the envelope for what it's doing. I think the character work that's done, like bringing you into this character that you are going to embody for the rest of the game, really understanding her, feeling what her pain is, not knowing who she is, the confusion that she's feeling, meeting Raven as a character, understanding who he is, understanding that he works for this other lady, and supposedly even worked with you back in the day before you were captured and experimented on like a technological plug-and-play machine. You eventually get to learn a little bit about your past, not the full grasp of everything, but you learn a little bit of tidbits here and there while learning and meeting these other characters along the way. Raven's going to kind of sit in at the spot of your handler throughout this entire engaging series of events that is going to transpire. And you know what I was saying, the whole thing of how you get vibes from 70s and 80s movies constantly? The story in and of itself feels like a callback back to stuff like Terminator and, again, Blade Runner, where you have this whole system of things where they were like, oh, this AI is going to help us out, this technology is going to push the world forward. forward. We got some Skynet issues, but they change it enough, and they do enough changes throughout the story and the world building to where it doesn't just feel like a ripoff of something else. It feels more like an homage in the writing. They're pulling aspects from other great pieces of work, such as, even when I look at something like Fifth Element, you see elements of that in here. Kill Bill. And the list goes on and on. You can feel its inspiration is worn on its sleeve, but it doesn't just simply rip it and then put it in the game. It feels like it looks at these things and says, how can I utilize stuff that I love from these IPs to make my IP that much better without being a ripoff? And that's the way you should do things. It's not just member berries all over the fucking place, which a lot of games try to do all the time. It's using themes and inspiration to create its own profound original story, and you can see that when you see Yuri, the lady who contracts you to be an assassin for her. As long as you do these things, she will then provide you with the information on your memory, so you're not a lost girl in a big scary world anymore. All of these characters feel very original and organic to the universe in and of itself. They don't feel like they were ripped from some other IP and then shoved into this game just because they know that the character's going to like them. As well as when you do get into like this first actual level of this game, it does what no other Gzdoom game has done, in my opinion. Even Ashes, which Ashes has a lot of appeal to like the Fallout community and has a lot of exploration. Yes, it has a lot of things where you're going and talking to different people doing different things, but it doesn't ever feel like it's really that much different than a very linear Metro style game. It was more on the cusp of being Metro than something like actual Fallout. Yes, Ashes is great, and I will eventually make a video on the whole series of Ashes, but I don't think Ashes does what the first opening section of Beyond Sunset can do, and that's truly giving you an open world to play with. It gives you this open city environment that you can run around and fucking explore, and slowly you gain access to all the different areas through either like killing different area stage bosses, or not bosses, but key holders. So the way you get keys is two different ways in this game. You can either find key cards, or you can find leaders of areas. And when you find a leader of an area, you have to kill them. When you kill them, you disembody their arm from their body. Obviously, that's what disembodiment means. If my penis was sitting on the counter, removed from my body, it'd be a disembodied penis. But if I ripped it off, I don't think that's called disembodiment. I don't know how this shit works. I eat taint salads for breakfast, so shut up, you stupid ass fucking virgins trying to correct me in the comments down below. I will eat your goddamn mom out. Utilizing these disembodied hands as keys, I thought was something very original. Yes, you do this in games all the time. This is not a new fucking thing to do. I just love the idea that throughout each section of this game, instead of going and just finding a fucking key floating in the middle of the room, you find somebody that you slice apart and then take their hand so you can open up more areas of the map and proceed and actually get all the different areas opened up and really get that true exploration. Because look how fucking gorgeous this absolutely awesome cityscape is. Now, I did run into quite a bit of performance issues, but there was like one setting I hit. I can't remember which one. I fucked with the settings constantly to get the frame rate to run a little bit better. Throughout a lot of this game, there's some frame rate issues. I don't know what's going on there. I found the Steam reviews very useful in that regard, so if you're having problems with like frame rate drops and stuff in this gaming experience, make sure to check out the Steam reviews or forums online. There's a ton of people who talk about it. They'll know the settings a lot more than I do. I'm a fucking console squab, wobble, do blah, cocksucker who doesn't really know what he's doing when it comes to PC, so I'm just kind of fucking pin and pushing my way through everything. While looking at being a bullheaded idiot, there is something that I find really engaging about this game, is there's usually multiple ways of skinning a cat in almost anything if a game's well designed, and that is exactly what this game is. Now, you might see that I'm in this combat right now. I'm in this club, everybody's running around, there's chaos, because I found a leader of an area. She is a fucking card wielder. I need her fucking hand. I need to fucking take those sweet fingers off and fist my own asshole. But you see, the problem is, once I find her and then engage in combat, it locks the entire club down. So that means I have a bunch of innocent civilians running around fucking like chickens with their head cut off. Yet, if you take a little bit more time to look around, you can find at the other entrance there is a fire alarm. If you pull that fire alarm, you can then get everybody out of the room before it locks down and you're forced into this combat scenario. Because once that combat scenario starts, that bitch is locked down. There's civilians in your way, you can't see where the combat's coming from, and you will die a bunch because of the fact that you have all of these civilians running around concealing where the enemy's locations are. But once you get rid of that interference, then you can just have a straight up fight against these enemies. I like that idea of having the multiple different scenarios. It kind of goes into that immersive sim feeling where you have this multiple ways to skin a cat or multiple ways to use a flesh puppet. And this whole area kind of goes into that same regard. Almost this entire city has a million different things you can do and a million different ways you can look at things. For example, you could run through this game just collecting keys or hands or whatever you want to call them, but you could also take the time to smell the roses and talk to the little vendors and see what they need in the map, and which most of the time they'll send you over to the irradiated zone that's filled with fucking ghouls from Fallout that you have to kill and then explore and jump from building to building, because the platforming in this game is actually pretty good. I know you're hearing me say that, somebody who hates platforming in FPS games. It usually drives me up a goddamn wall, but this game has pretty decent platforming. Yeah, I fucked it up a lot because I'm retarded and I'm not very good at video games, but I still had fun with it, and I feel like the exploration is really key to this game, and the fact that I was having so much fun with this exploration that I was consistently wanting to do these side quests just to see every inch of this city. It really pushed me to the point that there was not a single area of this city I did not want to explore. I wanted to see it all, and I think it's the best quality of this game early on is the fact that it gives you this open-ended, do whatever the fuck you want open world vibe in a game that honestly, if you were just playing it normally, would feel like a key hunting Boomershooter game. It would feel like a Doom style game, but it didn't want to be that. It wanted to rise above that and give you an experience that felt truly original and truly fucking eye-opening. And that's exactly what this does with its exploration, because I didn't expect a Gzdoom game to have this level of fucking verticality, as well as this insane open world exploration design in the first mission of the game. Yes, I know I believe the prologue should just be the first mission, and there is some time between the prologue and this, but I did like this ability that it showed. It was like, hey, you can go do a little fun little side quest, and you're doing the side quest, you're finding things, you go find a briefcase from one guy, which is a fun combat encounter, then you need a robot battery, so you find a broke down robot, only he's not broke down, and we got a mini boss fight, a fucking mini boss, open world mini boss fight in a fucking Gzdoom game. This is insane. This game takes what it's learned from other open world games, condenses it, and puts it into a Gzdoom engine. I mean, the attention to detail here is just insane. The fact that I can do a level multiple different ways. Now, they don't always do that, but the fact that it's in here and it exists, and they were like, yeah, we're gonna do something crazy with this club mission. And then they're like, oh, do you want to just go and fight a fucking mini boss for a little side quest? And you could totally miss this if you didn't decide to play the little side quest and explore the whole map. You can miss all of this different stuff. You can bullhead your way through this entire game, play it like your original traditional shooter, or you can go and really engage with the world, and the world will engage with you back. It feels alive, it feels breathing. So many open world games fall into the trap of just feeling empty and lifeless, but this game never feels that way from every little single area. I mean, even down to some of the weird NPCs that you talk to, they end up feeling like, man, they could be important, they could be unimportant. You're just having a conversation, like vibing with some of these people you met, going through dialogue options to just kind of see what's going on, get a little lore for the area. You don't know if that person's going to be important or if they're going to matter because they have a similar dialogue options to a random fucking street hooker on the side of the street. I haven't ran into a street hooker, but random dudes in trench coats. They're either street hookers or flashers or private detectives. I don't know. But there's a lot of them all around, and you just have these conversations with people. In a normal game, a game that really didn't have to take the time to care and really craft out an idea and a story, would just leave it as that. Oh, it's cool interactable feature that you can go talk to everybody. Well, we get points for that. And yes, you would get points for that. But the fact that this game was like, no, I'm going to take it a step further. Hold my fucking beer. That weird little person you were talking to at a bar, getting a little bit of information, really feeling around the different NPCs, getting a vibe for what this world is, ends up being incredibly important. Because she ends up being the final boss of the fucking area, of the city area. She is who you've been looking for this entire time. And from the beginning of the goddamn mission, the first person you can walk up and talk to sitting at a bar is that you don't even have to talk to her. You can walk right by her, ignore her existence, not know anything about her. She doesn't fucking matter. She's just something existing in this world, a sad person living at a bar. And guess what? She was your final enemy. She was there the whole time. She was right under your nose, and that is fucking brilliant. It is so brilliant. I have really never jumped into a game where I was like, oh, cool, there's just this person fucking chilling here, and I didn't even think, you know how much this blew my mind, dude? I mean, I've had my mind blown. I've had some head-blowing activity in my life that was top tier. I've gotten some top tier head, is what I'm saying. I have come on a lot of people's faces, but this time I got to come on my face. I was the one sitting there getting showered upon of golden style from R. Kelly, because this blew my fucking mind. Some random bitch at the bar that I just kind of had an offhanded conversation to ends up being the most important person in this entire city? That's fucking nuts. You're going through fighting all these little fucking managers that are gang leaders of this city, trying to unlock all the areas to get to whoever this big person is that you have to assassinate so you can get one step closer to learning your identity, and she's been under your nose the whole fucking time? That's fucking brilliant. That is so good, and that's what I think puts this game a step above even a game like Stalako, with all of its innovations and wonderful full gameplay. And really, Stalako is a much better game on paper when it comes to gameplay in and of itself, but this game I think rises above that because of its crafting nature of the world, really pushing itself above and beyond. And the fact that this is the first level just makes me think that when this game fully releases, this is going to be something that's going to be like, it should be game breaking. This should be a game that everybody and their fucking mom is talking about, that you should have printed on CDs and trying to like stuff out on the corner. You're like, hey man, hey, you're like scratching your neck. You're like, hey man, listen man, I swear to you, boy, I swear to you, buddy, I have that good shit. I got that good. Did you know you can talk to the boss before you ever fight the boss at the beginning of a level, and it just feels like a weird encounter with somebody who's a drunk at a bar? Oh yeah, you need this fucking Beyond Sunset game, I swear to God. And you just keep itching and scratching until you got scabs on your neck. And on top of that, her boss fight is incredibly fun the whole time. She has like 3 different boss phases, and they all act completely different. I remember when I broke her down to her first fucking level, and then you get to the second level and the third, and it always feels like you're on the cusp of beating her, but she has a little bit more to give. And then when you finally do beat her, and she flies up into the sky and fucking explodes, it is so cool. It kind of bummed me out when I did get to the second area and I found out I wasn't in his city anymore, and it had the Star Wars aesthetic, which I thoroughly appreciate considering Star Wars is kind of ass anymore. So the fact that this game really is taking advantage of that idea that, yeah, I can put Star Wars into this, why wouldn't I? It is in the future. We do have spaceships flying around. Why the fuck wouldn't there be a cool ass fucking Death Star like fucking Enterprise bullshit world? Why wouldn't there be these cool hallways that you've seen in Star Wars? It makes sense. It is the future. I can do whatever the fuck I want. That's the vibe it gives, instead of being like, member Star Wars, member, doesn't this feel like fucking episode 7, member? No, it feels like it's organic to this world because it doesn't have the fear that, oh, what if I'm not in the same vibe? Do I have to stay with the Kill Bill aesthetic in the Blade Runner world? No, it decides to branch out and really give you variety, showing that this world is bigger than just what you see on the street level below, which I thought was incredibly inventive. And even when you're on the street level in the Blade Runner type world, you have the eradicated zone that feels completely different. Though the story in this game is pretty simple, just a girl wanting to find her backstory, which we've seen a million times before, the world in and of itself with its variety and depth makes you want to dive even deeper. It wants me to find an hour to 4 hour long video just to listen to find out all the lore behind Beyond Sunset. It is honestly a game that, yes, it takes inspiration from Soul-style bosses, but it also takes inspiration from Soul-style games, and the fact that you're constantly seeing different areas that you want to know all the little tidbits of lore going on in this game. It's something that a lot of even Souls-likes don't understand, and this game's not even trying to be a fucking Souls-like. It's sitting fairly in its own goddamn lane, and goddamn does this game's art style fuck. Because again, when this game could have simply laid down and said, yeah, we're going for a Star Wars theme on this level, and you're getting the vibes, you're in a hangar, it looks like some spaceship in Star Wars, and then you walk in and you got these giant fucking naked sphinxes that are hot, by the way, really fucking great character work. Anytime they had to do a naked woman in this, they were like, yeah, we're gonna make it sexy, and we don't care. Well, what are you going to do about it? We have 2 fucking powerful female characters in this game. Not only is the lady you're working for a powerful character who's stuck in this fucking tube, hooked up to a system and knows all, and knows your backstory that you're fucking killing people for, but your main protagonist, she is a strong character who's confused at the world around her, but that's not going to let her slow her down. There are 2 very powerful female characters, but it's also not afraid to show off the sexuality of women at the exact same time. I like the idea that they were like, fuck you guys, guys, we're gonna do whatever we want. Fuck you guys over there, we're gonna do whatever we want. It really just finds its own lane, and it sticks to its own lane, and it is unapologetic about it. I really appreciate that. Even when you get into this level, now I was a little disappointed at first when I first started playing this level, because the city was so amazing, it had such great exploration, and this just felt like I was on a spaceship. It felt like a step down. Where this section really fucking steps above the last one is the interactions you end up making with these 3 worker individuals at this spaceship or this computer zone or whatever the fuck this sci-fi place is. You have to eventually try to get to the point where you get what you need from them. So what you're then sent on is kind of little fetch quests. You're going and talking to this guy. The guy in yellow, he's the one that has to provide me with more power, so then I can get you what you want. Well, he doesn't have the availability to provide that power, so he sends you to another person. But while you're talking to them, they have 3 very distinct personalities. Now, the guy in red, he hates the other 2. He thinks the one guy's fake nice. He doesn't trust anything he fucking says. He thinks the other lady's crazy, and he thinks they're both diversity hires. And I'm like, whoa, bro, you need to calm the fuck down. Bro seems a little savage, but he seems very, very honest. When you get to the green lady, she's just a fucking batshit nut job. She is fucking crazy. She doesn't know what the fuck's going on. This bitch is talking about, like, underground fucking technological elves. She's like, why are cyber elves taking over everything? They're all getting influenced by the cyber elves. Bitches on her Alex Jones are, they're trying to make the freaking elves gay. They're making the cyber elves gay. We need to stop all of these fucking reptilian people. You know, red and yellow, they're fucking reptiles. You got the fake fucking nice yellow reptile, and you got fucking racist reptile. It is weird. She's a fucking gooner. And see, I made the mistake of initially going into this conversation thinking, oh, this is just like the normal run-through linear game, even though I shouldn't have thought that way. And right after I made my selection on what I was going to do moving forward, I regretted it instantly, because she tells you she wants you to go kill one of the other characters. Because even though the first area had that open design, I really didn't think of the dialogue having that much meaning, so I just kind of cycled through it without thinking. And right after I agreed to it, I said, fuck, I have made a mistake. Because now I was locked into going to kill the red guy, who I thought was the only guy who felt the most honest out of these 3 nut jobs. Now, is he still a nut job? Absolutely, but I didn't want to kill him for the fucking technological elf lady. I'm sorry. The fucking technological elf lady is not the one I want to side with. Now I find myself locked in, and I have to do this. It's one of those things that I'm telling you this right now. It's because I want you to save before you have this interaction with her and you make these choices, because I think it makes a difference on who you fight at the end of this giant mission, which is brilliant. I like the way that you can have up to 3 different endings for this whole scenario. I wonder if there's even an ending where by the time you get done to this, you can keep all 3 of them alive. I do, however, wish that they would have done this a little bit better, because when you get to how you kill the person, it breaks down in a one way. You go through, you clear a bunch of rooms of enemies, and then you kill a person. It's not really you get a boss fight with that person. You clear these rooms, hit these switches, and then it fries their pussy ass. And usually after you fry them, or a little bit before, you get a key that will allow you to explore in the little hacking zone. Now, I haven't really covered these hacking zones thus far. I think they are one of the most interesting parts of this entire gameplay experience. Throughout the game, you'll go into these little rooms, much like System Shock, and you will clear the enemies and solve the puzzle. I think that these are really, really fun. Do they get a little boring at times? Yes, but they got boring in System Shock as well, and I think these are actually slightly better than System Shock, especially when it comes to the enemy design of these computerized enemies. They look like giant heads or giant fucking... what is that knight from the Kirby games? I don't know, the one with the fucking horns. You'll let me know down in the comments. But you have 2 types of enemies, the floating heads or the Kirby knights, and depending on which one you're up against, you either use your right click or your left click to deal with them, considering it's 2 different types of damages. As well as you run around hitting switches until you guide the light to the end of the mission, or you shoot a crystal and the mission is done. They're very simplistic, nothing too crazy about them, but I had a lot of fun with these. I think they are a nice break from your over-the-top insane combat where you're barely hanging on by a thread. Let them be a peaceful break from that normal combat. But once you do get all of these bullshits done and you've accidentally killed one of these guys, you then go report back to Green Lady or whoever you then taken the option to go kill somebody for. You go back, tell them they're dead, and then the Green Lady who I initially took the quest from, I was kind of pissed that she made me go kill Red, so I was like, fuck this this, bitch. I'm not doing another mission for you. And she tells me she wants me to go kill the yellow guy because he's a little pussy who's a yes man, and he's crazy. And even though you're the one talking about fucking cybernetic space elves, I'm like, no, I think I'm gonna let yellow guy live because I'm sorry, bitch, you've lost the plot. So I make my way over to yellow guy, and he says with a heavy heart that she has gone way too far, that she's lost the plot, that she needs to be taken care of. So you go through the same process that you've gone through before. You go to the area after he's given you the key, you open up all the different rooms, you fucking fight your ass through each of these little rooms to completion until you finally eviscerate her. The biggest problem I had with this entire section was this process. Now, this isn't a short process like I made it seem. These are just like 4 or 5 rooms you have to go through, clear these enemies. It is tedious, it is long, it's very repetitive, and it made me kind of feel a little bit down because yes, you get the diversity and the insane dialogue choices, and you feel like you have the control that you got from that first open area, but you don't get the openness of that area. The exploration's not as fun. It just kind of feels like, oh, go down, fight, do hacking puzzle, fight, and it gets so fucking repetitive by the end of it that you're kind of a little happy when you get to the point where you think you've completed all the objectives and you can finally progress this area, because again, this area is very gorgeous, but when you're doing the same thing over and over again, once you hit that first switch and it opens up the big fucking combat zone, you're like, oh, I know what I'm gonna do here. And yeah, they die in different ways, so you get that little cool new cutscene, but it just doesn't feel as open and as wild as that first area does. It's like, yes, you've elevated the dialogue, you've made this feel like your choices matter much more than they did even in the first and the prologue and the first level, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's kind of a step back in terms of gameplay design. Not bad by any means, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this is dog shit and I hated it, I just felt a little tired by the time I got done with it, and that was all fixed by the boss fight, of course, because this game has insanely amazing boss fights. I love the way it just like, it's almost Nintendo-like, the way they fucking throw his arm at you and you gotta shoot the things, because of course yellow guy was a fucking a ladder climber. He wanted to get up to the top and he didn't care who he had to take down along the way, but he was gonna play niceties until he got there. We saw this coming, but at the same time, it was a very fun boss fight. I liked the way that the story progressed this way. It felt like I had a hand in making this happen. Everything worked in my favor, and it was brilliant design, and then the boss fight was incredibly fun. It is over the top, it's half bullet health, half Souls-like. Amazing, dude. I can't gush on these fucking boss fights enough. I can't goon my way to victory every single time, but this is going to get me there. By the time I finished this, dude, my computer chair was so sticky that I had to go take it through a car wash, and then I had to just buy a new chair because the poor son of a bitch was so hard that the cum had seeped into the wood and is starting to crack. Well, just another brilliant part of this boss fight is all the other boss fights you had to like hone in on the main boss fight's body. You were just fucking pumping it with bullets while avoiding their attacks. This one says, what you've learned in the past, you're gonna throw that away. We have to elevate this gameplay experience, so when he throws his arms out, you shoot his arms, not him himself. You don't shoot the big mech, that does 0 damage. You have to wait until he throws an attack at you, you have to dodge it, and then slowly pick away his arm's health. It's actually really interesting, and it goes to where you eventually get like different powers along the way and different upgrades. I had this ice power where I'd freeze his arms in place and then fire fucking shots into him while I had it frozen in place. It's a really, really cool mechanic that you can put like poison or ice or whatever into your right hand and then have it doing damage throughout the entire experience. As well as, you have like 3 weapons in this game. The pistol really, it charges up. It's kind of like the plasma pistol in Halo where it's kind of fucking worthless. I was not a fan of the regular pistol in this game. It does its job. It has infinite ammo. That's good. So when you're in a tight spot, you have the ammo to do your things. But the real winners is the fact that you can upgrade the shotgun to shoot fucking grenades from underneath it, and you can upgrade the machine gun, which this machine gun I haven't really touched on, is one of the best machine guns I've ever used in a game. It is fucking phenomenal. I love the machine gun in this game, and you can upgrade it where it shoots rockets from underneath. That's so fucking sick. And it really elevates these 2 weapons to have these more powerful functions, and you get to make the choices along the way. Do I want to upgrade them? Do I want to upgrade my body? What do I want to do? And it kind of has that Deus Ex vibe where you're like, oh, I'm upgrading my cybernetic character because this is a cybernetic world to really elevate my gameplay experience. Or what I can do is upgrade my weapons so that I can have more of the Boomershooter experience. You have these 2 different options, whether it's mobility or attack, act throughout this whole game, and it makes these boss fights that are so over the top really, really cool, because now you have different ways of going about it. Either you hit it head first, headlong, or you can hit it from a more strategic angle. You do eventually beat that boss, and you finally get to meet Yuri, and when you get to this weird fucking monk compound, it is beautiful. It is so gorgeous. I love that it's just this world of peace in a world that's dystopian and chaotic. You have this one nice little area that is safe from all the cybernetic hell that's going on in the world, and you finally are going to get your answers, and it's this peaceful moment where you're running to where your answers that you've been looking for this entire game, they're sitting right at the tip, at the reach of your fucking existence. And the way they show Yuri and her fucking tube-riddled glory is so brilliant. It opens up, she's sitting in the middle of this purple tube, you're finally gonna get everything you wanted, and yet you're not, because the fucking Popo shows up. That 5-0 be going crazy, baby. The 5-0 coming in to send you to jail so you can drop the soap and get rammed in the asshole. Get pegged to fucking victory, bitch. Ha ha ha, dude, we're gonna take you down. We are the corpo fucking scum. We're gonna get all you fuckers into the prison system, baby. No more revolution on my time, cocksuckers. I loved this. I loved the way that it was teasing you with the end of the game. It was fucking, had that carrot on the stick, only to yank it away from you. Now, a lot of games have done this to the point where I hate it because it feels like it's artificially prolonging the game, but I knew in my fucking soul, it didn't feel like this game was ready to end. I knew it wasn't ready to end. It didn't feel like it had hit that ultimate crescendo. I felt like it had so much more to give, and that's exactly what I wanted, was them to pull the carrot away, because I knew that there was going to be more gloriousness to have. And I have to say, this next section was all gas, no brakes, baby. It had a vibe like The Last of Us. I remember at the beginning of The Last of Us when you're escaping the city and there's all these people shooting at you. Something the show really missed out on. I remember when I watched The Last of Us show and they just kind of left the city, and there was a little bit of pushback toward the end when What's-Her-Face died and she does the whole grenade thing while she makes out with the zombie, and I was like, it's fine. The game was better because you felt that tension. You felt like you were on a hardcore sprint for your life. And this game does that, but at the same time, you're fighting back at a full degree, and the mechs are tougher than they've ever been before, and they're throwing grenades at you from every angle, and you're fucking just barely surviving by a thread, while also trying to complete these puzzles where you're moving this orb around the map to open up different parts of the map. It's absolute fucking chaos. Dogs are coming at you from every angle, and you're kicking the pupperdoodles in the face, you're punching the cops in the nuts, you're shooting mechs in the goddamn nose. Everything is falling around you at once, and it's absolute, beautiful, wonderful chaos. And yes, this might be the most linear section of this game, but I think that it excels because of the amount of anxiety it gives you. I think that the beauty of this area, yes, it has some exploration and you can move around, you can crawl under things and go talk to monks that are hiding, that build more on the story of the fear that's going on in this moment to amplify what's going on, and it being linear, I think, adds to that experience. It's one of those things that, yeah, I got into this gorgeous area and I wanted to see more of it, and you do have this end out fight where you're recharging turrets and really defending your homeland, where it feels kind of chaotic and you're moving around the map, but it's a very tight experience. It's not where you're running around talking and then exploring different areas, which is much different than what you had in the previous missions of the game, but it's there for narrative purposes, and it's brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. This is the last level of what we have available in the little early access stage that this game's in, and I can't wait to see what the last chapter's all about. Like I've said from the beginning, I think there's something truly special here, and this last section that you get to play in this early access build is a perfect example of what this game understands more than almost any other Boomershooter right now. It understands that you have to push a story, and sometimes you have to build levels just for narrative purposes. Now, you can look at this as being a step back because of the lack of exploration, or you can look at this for what it is. A crucial change in the story's progression from being just you bringing the hell to everybody else to you having to fight and stand your ground from an ultimate onslaught of enemies. This end of flooding in horde of cops is one of the most interesting turns I did not know this game was going to take, where you're not really the one focused on doing the combat. Yeah, you're killing things, but you're also trying to focus on keeping your fucking base alive and well. It's almost that base builder onslaught mentality, which I didn't know I was going to get in this game. This was a perfect crescendo point for this game's story, highlighting the point that sometimes the main character isn't enough to win the battle. Sometimes your main Giga Chad isn't powerful enough to kill every enemy and change the tides of a war. Sometimes shit just happens and you have to stand your ground at your very fucking last breath, and you need all the help you can get, because at this time your main crew is going and fighting from a different angle, and you're trying to hold off this one vantage point into your little safe house, because all over the world in this little area there is people doing the same things, or at least that's what it alludes to. You are having this standoff to save anything you can save before the world plunges deeper into chaos and there is no last fight to have. It is prepping you for your last push toward the main bad guys, the main great ending, and I don't think they could have done it in any other way. It was one of those things that I had those gripes about the last section being kind of repetitive, and this is even more repetitive than that, but I think that it stands more purpose than the last section. I think that they understood what they were doing here and they executed it to a fucking T. I can't wait till this full game comes out. I hope you enjoyed my video, and keep an eye on Beyond Sunset, because I think this game is something special and something that needs to be looked at and dived into, and by somebody smarter than me. I'm not a full fucking retard, but I'm kind of fucking retarded. I know a million creators who work on Souls games or Fallout games who, if they played this, if they were to experience all the little dialogue choices and go through painstakingly and actually learn all the lore, I think that there's some fucking deep shit going on here that is incredibly interesting, and I can't wait to see more. I want this game to blow up harder than it's blown up at all, because I try to find stuff on this game. There's not a lot of info out there about it. Yeah, there's a few YouTube videos here, there's a few walkthroughs here, but it's not to the same extent of something like a Sulaco or really any other indie FPS game coming out right now. I think this has one of the most in-depth stories and deserves way more love. So if you see this video, send it to other people, really push this game into the ecosphere, get it in the general mindgeist of the world, because this game needs fucking love. And I might just be some idiot YouTuber who might get like 100, 200 views on this video at max, maybe, but I hope this game gets pushed. I hope people watch this, because I'm in love. I'm desperately in love. This is my new waifu. I'm fucking happy. Thank you guys so much for your time. I hope this game ends up being a fucking huge success when it fully releases. And that's all I have to say about it. I'll catch you next week. Actually, one more thing. I fucking forgot. The soundtrack slaps the most clit I've ever heard in my life. This soundtrack would make like a person who's asexual come. I'm sorry. It's fucking amazing. That's all I have to say.